But there were a lot of great games this week, and I think one in particular caught my eye. And you know what? That was the Monday night game. That
Fuck
was
you. Fuck
the
you.
Eagles and the Atlanta Falcons,
You're a piece
and
of
I
shit.
think that one really was special to watch, and most importantly, it was enjoyable to watch.
Well, I say this in the most respectful way possible. Go fuck yourself.
Mm,
Uh,
naturally.
I'm very pissed off about that game. Obviously, because we our defense, who I was just bragging about last week, after a great week, after I thought it was a good week 1 performance, actually just shit the bed. They just, I feel like what they did was they said, all right, let's just leave them open and let them score. Darius Slay, a veteran, getting cooked up by Drake London. I'm not saying Drake London's bad or anything, but what I saw in that game was a disgrace on the defensive front. We pay Vic Fangio a stupid amount of money. He should not be letting that happen. I'm sorry, but like that's horrible.
Well, I honestly think the biggest takeaway from that game is the Falcons didn't win that game. The Eagles lost that game, right? There's a big difference. That could have been one of the worst coaching performances I've seen in quite some time from Sirianni. There was so many mistakes. Well, first, to put your point about the defense, they didn't blitz nearly enough.
No,
You're right. They gave him way too much time in the pocket for a guy who in week one and even in week two just showed in Kirk Cousins. He's still not completely 100% in terms of trying to go outside the pocket. So why would you not blitz him and try to get him in the pocket? But two, Sirianni was absolutely horrific in decision making. I mean, on the offensive side, they hardly ran the ball within the end zone, within the red zone, that is, with Saquon. They went for it on fourth down in the first instead of kicking a field goal, which is just giving points away at that point, considering it is the first and, it's not big crunch time or anything like that. And then obviously, the end of that drive was horrible. You can argue all you want about Saquon dropping the pass or not, but in that situation, you have to run the ball
yeah,
to get off as much clock as possible. I just think it was an absolute disaster class from Sirianni. And, well, on a personal note, it brought a little bit of a tear to my eye just to see a little bit of happiness from this NFL season.
there's also another thing I'd say. Like I'm a massive Eagles fan. Probably I'm a huge Eagle fan. I just don't like how there's some Eagles fans who are turning the blame on Saquon for dropping
Mm.
that pass when had a good game. He didn't get in the end zone, but he still had a good running game, good coming out of the backfield. It's just one pass that he dropped. It was like Malik Neighbors dropping that pass in last week.
Hmm. Well, I mean, the difference here is Saquon's an established player in this league. He just got paid a ton of money, 12, $13 million a year to come over to this team that is quote unquote Super Bowl caliber.
I just
Neighbors on the other, I will not take any slander. The kid made a mistake. It's his rookie year. He had a great game. He showed everything that Giants fans have been hoping for. Yes, he dropped that pass at the end, which probably would have led to a scoring drive. Obviously, the Giants didn't have their kicker the entire game because Gano decided to, completely destroy his hamstring on the opening kickoff. But you still would have probably had a good chance to drive down the field. But that game is no place and way. In my opinion, they don't compare, right? The Eagles are supposed to be this Super Bowl caliber team, and you just signed this running back to a very lucrative deal where he is supposed to catch. He's supposed to make those plays.
yeah.
And if you're not going to run the ball, damn right you're going to have to give it to a sure-handed guy. And you know what? It is on his shoulders. That game is over if Saquon catches that ball. The game's over.
Yeah, because we get the first down and then
It's over. We're having a very different conversation
you're
right now.
more
He's got to
upset.
catch that.
You're
He's
more
got to catch that ball.
yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not saying like he obviously should have caught it. I just feel like that what like the Eagles fans are like I feel like they're putting most of the blame on him when that was only partial to blame, if you know what I
Well,
mean.
Eagles fans are horrible anyway, so we're going to
Hey,
get past that.
hey,
But
hey,
from a
hey.
fantasy perspective, also a very disappointing game because Bijan and Saquon had a ton of holes. They ran the ball phenomenally. Behind, both offensive lines looked dynamic, very
Yeah.
impressive, but not one of them got a touchdown, which is very surprising in a game that really, emphasized on those two running backs in that matchup. So, from a fantasy perspective, a little disappointing. I don't really think anybody per se went off fantasy wise within that game. I mean, you could say
Devontae.
Mooney at the end with that long touchdown, but I'm not really sure many people, in PPR leagues are starting Mooney unless got caught in the injury bug. But definitely not exactly a great fantasy performance. London, I'm sure, made a lot of people happy at the end, but a lot to be desired for on both sides of the ball.
Coming from the for the fantasy aspect of it, like the only person who I'd say, like, I'm not even trying to gaslight him because I think he did have the best game, like stats wise,
There we
is
go.
Devontae Smith. No, I'm not kidding.
Well, I mean, I
He
would
had 20.
hope he did,
He had he
especially
had
when
20
AJ
points.
Brown is out.
He had 20 fantasy points. So I feel like that's the best that was on that field, I believe.
Well, I mean, he had to have been. He was the big man on campus. I mean, AJ Brown's out not only this week, but a couple of weeks moving forward. So
Don't even,
he's going to have to step up in the wide receiving core.
don't fucking get me started. The injuries is for we need to talk about that after we're done talking about this. It's,
Absolutely. But glad we got that game out of the way. That brought a lot of joy to a sorrowful NFL season ahead for myself as a Giants fan. Um, I do still think the Eagles have a ton of potential. Do I think at this point in the season, it is only week 2, so let's calm the brakes a little bit. But did they look like a Super Bowl caliber team the first 2 weeks? Absolutely
no.
not. A lot of work to be done. And definitely a positive direction for Atlanta, by the way. All the Atlanta fans out there, you should be extremely pleased with the way that last drive went. Hopefully, they implement a little bit more of that, continuity and fluidness in their offense moving forward.
Yeah. No, one thing I will say is like that drive at the end was very good by them. Like it was a very good drive. They knew I thought that they were going to get caught up when Mooney didn't go out of bounds that one play, but like
Yep.
it was they drove down the field system. Well, it was a veteran quarterback going down the field. He's been in his situations. He knows what
And
he's
he
doing.
showed it. Yep.
He showed it.
It was perfect. I mean, I'm not sure how many people out there, or even if you did, Derek. I watched the Manning cast on Monday
I
nights.
did.
Um, I mean, they pretty much explained word for word what needed to happen, and then it did happen, right?
Exactly.
When you're going into a 2-minute drive down by a touchdown, heading into the fourth quarter and towards the end of the game, first play you just try to get positive yards, and then you just try to continuously get receptions out of bounds, and they did perfect. They got the long plays, they got the first down on the first reception with Pitts. It was just a flawless execution, and you got to give it a lot of props.
Yeah. I unfortunately had to give a lot of props. Tough loss for the Eagles, but it's only week 2. We're going to move on.